This is the City of Waupaca's City Plan Commission meeting.
Good evening, everyone. This is a public hearing we're having tonight of the City Plan Commission. In attendance, we have Commissioners Olson, Wayne, Lesage, Behrens, Smith. Also in attendance, we have Aaron Jensen, City Administrator, Jared Rakew, Community and Economic Development Director. Yeah, I did. I didn't call him mayor, though.
Okay.
The purpose of the hearing tonight, we have two hearings, we have one hearing with two items on it. The first item is for a conditional use permit that Wisconsin Public Service Corporation, owner of American Transmission Company, LLC, has applied for the permit to allow utility substation expansion as a conditional use. At this time, I would ask for any testimony in favor of the subject. Is there any testimony in favor of it? Hearing none, I will ask for testimony in opposition to the subject. Is there any testimony in opposition to the subject? If not, I declare this hearing closed at 5:18. I'm sorry, I don't close the hearing. We move on to the next subject. And the purpose of this hearing is, again, a conditional use permit. This is by T-Mobile Central, and this is for a mobile tower as a conditional use in the R1 single-family residence district. Is there any testimony in favor of the subject? Is there any testimony in favor of the subject? Hearing none, I ask if there's any testimony in opposition to the subject. Is there any testimony in opposition? Hearing none, I declare this hearing closed then at 5:19 p.m. We'll go right into the City Plan Commission meeting. In attendance, we have the same commissioners as at the hearing. And I would ask for an approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Olson, second by Wayne. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. The agenda is approved. We have two sets of Plan Commission meeting minutes to approve as well. January 5th, public hearing minutes. Is there a motion to approve that?
Motion to approve those.
Second.
Motion by Lesage, second by Olson. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. January 5th, 2022 meeting minutes of the Plan Commission. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Olson, second by Wayne. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have 4 action items on the agenda tonight. The first one is conditional use permit by Wisconsin Public Service Corporation, the American Transmission Company. Jared, you want to set this up for us?
Yes, I would. Thank you very much. So this report starts on page 14 of your packet. This conditional use permit request is for 440 River Street, Wisconsin Public Service / ATC, American Transmission Company, which we do have a representative on the our Microsoft Teams if we have any specific questions for him. But they are looking to do a small expansion on their property at 440 River Street. This would be looking at their site as a whole. They have two separate properties. Both properties have kind of separate graveled facilities for the electrical equipment. They are looking at the northernmost facility, which is on that property at 440 River Street. They are looking to do a small expansion on the north side towards the river, which would involve moving the fence towards the river and then adding some control equipment and backup equipment in that new kind of fenced area. Not a huge change, but given that it is in the Resource Conservation District, this change is coming through as an amendment, as they actually have received a conditional use permit prior to operate on the site, I believe in the 1990s. So a while back. But coming forward with this amendment so that they can come forward next month with their site plan to actually do this work. There are a couple conditions on page 19, and I would be happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Jared. Now we have, is it Mr. Anderson from ATC online also?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson, is there anything you'd like to say?
No, just to clear up one point, WPS, Wisconsin Public Service, is the owner. They're a separate entity from ATC, and ATC is there by easement, but typically we procure permits for projects that we are in charge of. So just a minor clarification.
Okay. You've all had the opportunity to take a look at the conditional use permit.
Yeah, so I guess my question would just be, are they okay with all the conditions? Have they agreed to them?
Mr. Anderson, you have a response for that?
Yes. Like Jared said, we submitted a site plan application at the end of last month and plan on presenting and attending that meeting next month in March. But yes, we do agree to those.
Yeah. Is there a motion on this?
I'll move to approve.
Yeah, second.
Or
Motion
just a
by,
recommendation to council.
Right.
this
This would be a
recommend to
recommendation to
All right,
council.
so I'll move to recommend to council.
council. All right, motion by Olson, second by Wayne to recommend to council. Is there any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And I will abstain on this vote. Motion carries. Second item is a conditional use permit for T-Mobile Central. Again, Jared, could you fill us in on this?
Of course. This report starts on page 26 of your packet. This is as it relates to 250 Bailey Street. So I guess clarification on this, we do actually own this property, and we have a set lease agreement with T-Mobile Central and SBA. So they are the lease holders of a select leased area within the boundaries of this site. So they are looking to do a generator replacement. This is kind of what sparked this whole process. Now, a little bit unique. So upon doing that generator replacement, which was just meant to be a simple site plan, it was found that previously they had put equipment outside of their leased area. So we did go through a whole process, which council members should be aware of, as they had approved the lease prior. So they have a new leased area. So as such, going through this conditional use process to ensure that their whole new leased area is covered under the conditional use. And then they're going to be coming through with an internal site plan to replace an existing generator on site. Same location, just replacing a propane with a diesel. They feel it's more reliable and updating that generator system. So this is just for the conditional use for the property of that new leased area so that they can then move forward with generator replacement. I'll take any questions if you have any. And I guess similar conditions are placed, I guess fewer, on page 32. They are pretty standard conditions, nothing really extravagant, just saying that they need a site plan before they can commence anything, simple things like that.
Any questions for Jared? You've read the package. Is there a motion?
We're just sending this to council, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll
recommendation.
make a motion to approve.
A
Motion
second.
by Wayne, second by Lesage. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, our third item is ordinance number 04-2022, Chapter 17, Alternative Energy Systems. Jared, you want to fill us in on this?
Yes. So this starts on page 53 of your packet. It does start with the ordinance, and it should follow with a red line, kind of going through the proposed changes in red. So really the big ones we're looking at changing here are the conditional and permitted use statuses. So, for example, the solar energy systems, geothermal energy systems, changing those from conditional to permitted. They still have to go through all the proper permitting building processes, meet building codes. All of those state codes and building codes need to be met. We're just eliminating the conditional use, which, again, they would still come through for a site plan, just not a conditional use. So eliminating that extra step, trying to be more cooperative with alternative energy systems, more welcoming. Within the currently existing alternative energy systems code, and at the last meeting, I kind of brought a condensed version, just tried to highlight some of the main to see if there were any comments. This one is taking what our current code involves for alternative energy systems, including small wind energy, geothermal, solar, and electric vehicle infrastructure. So there are some changes through this code to kind of clear things up and just make it not as bulky. Reading through it, you do kind of get lost, trying to make this more comprehensive, clear, not only for staff, but if a resident were to read it, contractors, so they can understand what's going on. There were a couple comments beforehand within this ordinance that I wanted to note right away, and if it is recommended for approval, include those changes. So the couple changes include on page, I believe it is 60. There's a section in the page 60. Sorry, in the actual packet here. There is a section near the top. It is letter E, so 6E, and it states all exterior electrical and or plumbing lines must be buried below the surface of the ground and placed in a conduit. So when the comment was brought up of if this is required, I went and spoke with the building inspectors, which they said there is certain times it is and there is certain times it isn't. So it is kind of determined by building codes and state electrical codes. So just for ease, to kind of eliminate the whole zoning aspect and just allow them to deal specifically with state building and electrical codes, recommendation just to remove that letter E. And then also a clarification on page, I believe it is 61. 61 near the bottom, letter H2. Just a clarification. It should say when a side provides notice that a parking space is a publicly designated electrical vehicle charging station space, or charging station. So just a clarification there. So instead of spaces publicly, it should say spaces is publicly. So just those two changes, if it is recommended for approval. I would be happy to take any questions on this one.
Any questions for Jared?
You explain that conduit, I guess detail again. What page was that on?
Page 60 of the packet, overall packet.
And then what section is that in?
It's at the very top, letter
Okay.
E. It's an Edward.
I had raised the question as to whether plumbing needed to be in conduit, because I don't think that's necessary. But again, if you strike the paragraph, then and just refer to codes, then that should take care of it.
Yeah, speaking with our building inspector, she noted that it really is dependent on what's, manufacturer, installation, what exactly they do. So by requiring something like this, it may end up that manufacturers' installation processes vary or different, or are different. Maybe they may require different things. So just by striking it, it's just kind of eliminating confusion and overlap. So in the end, they will need to follow the state electrical, state building code, which for electrical, you wouldn't just have Romex cable running underneath. It would need to be protected. So 99% of the time it's going to be in conduit anyways. We're just trying to eliminate the redundancy and try to eliminate confusion on that one.
Any other questions?
I got a question on page 63, right in the middle. You've got utility crossed off, and then you've got utility again. What is that?
So that was actually just adding a hyphen, so it was a grammar thing. And just while we were going through it,
Oh, I see.
figured we'd fix the small grammar. And then right below in the next line, there's like a comma added after safety. So just fixing up those couple grammar things. Not that they were that big of a deal, but.
Is there a reason why you would not allow the electric vehicle infrastructure level 3 in residential?
So level 1, 2, and 3. So level 3, if you think of like the Tesla supercharger stations, so essentially it's like a gas station, but with electrical plugs. That's more relating to the level 3. The level 1 and 2. 1 would be if I just have a standard, like an extension cord style that I just plug into that outlet over there, and it transfers it, kind of acts as an adapter to the car. That obviously charges much, much slower. Some people opt for the level 2, which is where you would have to have an electrician come into your house. They install, a special little box that states whatever the company name is, and it kind of ups the ampage, and then it's a special, cord to the car. Level 3 is kind of that designated, it's put in there specifically for that. It's essentially like a gas pump, but for electric vehicles. So I guess the thought was most likely nobody's going to be able to afford that for a residence anyways. Retrofitting that level 2 is going to be more than sufficient for their residents, and charging it overnight and charging it for the couple hours they're home, in between traveling. So something certainly we could add in there. Just didn't think it was feasible. And also you're kind of getting into, I guess I thought of it again, relating it to the gas pump, trying not to, people can have gas cans in their garage, but do you want somebody with a full on gas pump style?
Anything else for Jared? As an aside, I looked up what a small wind energy system is, and I was kind of surprised, but it's 300 kilowatts or less, which is a rather large windmill. Put it in perspective, a typical house may use up to 10 kilowatts of demand at a time. So this is 30 times that size. Anything else for Jared?
Just one quick question. You've got 540 days listed on page, is it 71? I'm just thinking what's specific about 540 days.
So that, and I forget which section, there's already another section that quotes 540, the 540
It's in
day
a couple
period.
of different places.
Yeah, so I was just making it consistent.
What's magic about that number?
That was the number that was in there, so that was the number
Just seems really random.
I stuck with.
They threw a dart at a board and said, that's it?
Yeah, I didn't have any rhyme or reason for it. I was just trying to opt for consistency.
It's basically a year and a half.
Yeah, I was trying to do the math.
I was just doing the math, yeah.
Yeah, is that what it
About
is?
there. It's 7 days off. But yeah.
7
18
days
months.
off of a year and a half?
Yep.
Well, pretty close.
7.5, sorry.
All right.
Okay, anybody ready to make a motion on this? This be a recommendation to council.
Yeah, I'll recommend.
Second?
All right, motion by Wayne, second by Olson. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, our last action item is a certified survey map for Laura K. Peterson, 215 North Morton Street. Jared, what do you say about that?
Well, this one starts on page 73 of your packet. This is a subdivision, so they're subdividing a smaller parcel off of a larger parcel. This is located on Bailey Street, so actually right adjacent to 250 Bailey Street, which we actually saw prior in the meeting. The proposed land use is for a cell tower. We have not received any applications for a cell tower yet, but that is an eventual thought for the planned use by subdividing this. So when that comes in, of course, that would be brought forward. But nothing at this time. It's just a subdivision, and that is noted in the application. It does meet all lot standards, and then the certified survey map itself should have all the elements contained within it that are required. So I would be looking for a recommendation to council for this one too, I believe.
I'll recommend to council for approval.
Second.
Motion by Olson, second by Lesage, to recommend to council. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Okay, thank you.
Who made the second?
That was Lesage.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, discussion.
Sorry about that.
Pardon me?
Sorry about that. My phone rang.
Oh,
Oh, we couldn't even hear
didn't
it.
hear it.
We would have never known.
Well, don't let it happen again.
Yes, sir.
Okay, discussion on site plan ordinance. Jared?
Yeah, so this one's been brought forward a couple of times. Prior meeting, the mayor kind of asked for more examples on each kind of change, what we're looking at. So I'll just kind of start here on the red line and move down. So starting there where it says any change in use. So this is something we added new, and I don't think that ever got added to here. As it currently would stand, any change in use would be coming to Plan Commission, which that would really lengthen the process for anyone looking to move into a building. And really, plus, we're looking at minor things. They're using an existing building. Obviously, any new large construction buildings would come to the Plan Commission. So that would include, something like if a retail shop was moving to a hair studio. Just an example for that. When somebody would come in for a change in use, we'd make sure everything is kosher to zoning code, that all the required standards are met, and then we'd grant approval internally. So added that one to the internal section. Next one down, any minor non-residential site plans, amendments that, they don't significantly affect. So some examples of this one would be Peterson Automotive. So they have a currently existing building. They have a currently existing accessory structure. They had came in and wanted to put just a storage shed on their property. It's a little bit bigger storage shed, but still a storage shed nonetheless. With them being an existing business, they're not adding employees. They're not really doing anything substantial, significant that could affect the overall layout of the lot, the surrounding uses. They have a very significantly large parcel. So again, making an option of this, if it doesn't need to come to Plan Commission, try to cut through the bureaucracy, approve it internally, make sure all the requirements are met, proper conditions are placed, and then of course putting it on that development report so you guys do see that it happened. So that's a change to the internal. Nothing really changed to the next one down that would deal with Plan Commission. Really, all others that don't fit, or even if there's a minor residential site plan that maybe it is minor, but hey, there could be some conflict in this one. It would still be brought forward to Plan Commission, but just there's some discretion in there. So letter C, exemptions. So this is kind of specifically relating to changes in use. So again, this is a new new item that we added to our zoning code in the more recent large revision. So with that, the way it states, it is anything. So even single family to single family should be coming in, which that's that's a lot of requirements. And honestly, that shouldn't be a priority for staff's time. There are much more priority items that could be worked on. So just these exemptions, like single family to single family, two family to two family. So, stuff like that. And then also any other site plans as determined by the zoning administrator or designee. So added this in here to give some flexibility. So, and also be looking for some clarification from you guys. So an example of this would be, and I think I've used it in past, a bakery to a bakery. Is that something we would want to have brought in an application, show that there's a change, there's a possible change, have that on record, or is that something that, we would want to see let go, so if that were to come into the zoning administrator, we say, well, no, you're all good to go. It was previously zoned that way. It can continue to be zoned that way. It's all okay. Downside of that would be, as we had previously brought through for Crystal's Automotive. So Crystal's Automotive was previously sales, service, and auto repair of passenger vehicles, but they had never came in for a conditional use permit. Their site was never reviewed properly. So the only way we really would have caught that is through the change in use application, which technically there is no change in use. The use is staying the same, but it caught an error that we then fixed and were able to fix. So keeping it in there and requiring those. There is some, additional footwork for the business owners, which that would be filling out the 2-page application and then submitting the $25 fee. Making sure all the other site standards are up to par. Otherwise, if you don't, you also could not catch things like that, and things like that would, Crystal's Automotive would slip. And, so I guess looking for some comments from you guys on that one, if you feel, which downfalls I guess you guys feel would be the better one to go with.
These kinds of items would still be in a report to the Plan Commission, wouldn't they?
So any other site plans, this would be exempt from that site plan process. So if it were a bakery going to a bakery and, there's no application required, that would not be in the reports because we wouldn't require an application for it. Whereas, so I guess that clarification, so that's what I'd be looking for. Is it something you guys would like staff to have require an application for? Or is it something that you don't feel, staff should require that as an application? So a bakery to a bakery. Now, of course, a retail shop to a hair studio, a true change in use where the use is changing, that would of course be brought forward in the reports and done internally and then brought forward in the reports for you guys to see. Now the question here would be similar to like the single family to single family, two family to two family. It's the same use. It's just maybe a transfer of ownership, a change in names. Is that something? So for an example, over by Everyday Hometown in that same complex, there's I think it's a home therapy. So they went through a change in ownership and they're going to change the name. Technically they're doing the same thing, but would we want to ensure and have that on paper that, hey, they're doing the same thing? If that makes sense, I'll take any questions on that one specifically. And something we don't need an answer now. I guess it's more of a conversation. I can bring it back next meeting too, and we can possibly answer any questions if they come up.
Alan, if you don't mind, if I make just a comment quick, just to answer your question before. And so some of it's, as Jared mentioned, looking for a little bit of direction on that back end, but the anything that does have an application that comes in, so any change in use that we do require and any minor non-residential site plans would be something that is in that report. Mm-hmm. So you would see that. I'm just going to make a comment too on the change of use from bakery to bakery. Actually, I think it should be noted that staff in the past, prior to maybe a year and a half ago, was not even taking in changes of use applications. So even if it went from bakery to hair salon, that wasn't something we required. Now, I'm not saying that's right. I think we should require that because it's just impossible to know if that's even the right zoning district without that. However, it adds it's a lot of administrative paperwork. It adds things that we didn't have prior. In my opinion, I think that a bakery to a bakery is not something we really need to require that type of change of use for an actual application. If there is something that hasn't been caught in the last 20 years, 30 years, 10 years, it could get caught if there was a project that happened there, like an expansion or a building permit was applied for. So there are other areas in which that could get caught. And it is just my opinion, feel free to disagree, that we would not necessarily need to have that application for the same use.
And could you give me an example of what's something besides the crystal example that they hadn't applied previously like they should have? What's something else that could get missed with this type of situation? Because I agree with Aaron. I don't think it is necessary, but maybe I'm not thinking of all that.
So, conditional uses could get missed. As Aaron mentioned, there are going to be other catches. We don't, for an example, if they're, if a bakery, a super unpopular bakery moves in and suddenly this super popular, Carlos's Bakery, I think is TLC, but anyways, Carlos's Bakery comes in, or Insomnia Cookies or something comes in, and they're just super popular. And typically the old bakery only had 5 parking spots, but now this new bakery, they got a line out the door, they got people parking on the street, that kind of thing. Obviously, we're going to catch that, and we're going to say that's not okay. You need to fix your parking. It is inadequate. You're causing safety, traffic congestion, things like that. So there are catches. Of course, we would catch that right away in this instance, and we would have them fixing it right away before it even becomes a problem. But it also could never become a problem. So taking a look at that could be one example I could think of.
Look, I'm in partial agreement with Aaron and Angela too. I don't think we need to make people go through more hoops to try and run a business in our community. But at the same token, some of the examples that you're giving me, Jared, actually concern me a little bit because you say that you would catch those things, and I'm not so sure you would catch those things until it's too late if you don't require a permit. So I think you need to maybe dig into it a little deeper on some examples that might have happened in the past where it makes sense to do this. And if we haven't seen any of those, then maybe we're okay.
Yeah, I can definitely try to take a look at some examples. Again, those couple I mentioned, and it could very well be something too that, we may have 2-3 examples in the past and we never receive another one again in the next 10 years. It very well could be too that we have none in the past, but then suddenly, 5 or 6 pop up in the next 2 years. And, so it is a give and a take. Again, there's the downfall of each. If you require a change in use site plan, even if it is going from a bakery to a bakery, it's more footwork for the applicant, and it's $25 out of their pocket. But if we don't, we also could miss things. So I very well could bring this back and try to find some more examples of where this could be an issue if we don't require this, if that's what you guys would like for this point.
Well, I think, I'm just thinking of other examples too. I mean, if you have, and I'm sure there's probably a conditional use on this too, but how about a pet store? All of a sudden, it's a pet store for domestic animals, and all of a sudden now we got alligators that they're trying to sell out of that. And that's a pet store to a pet store. So
someone's been in Florida too long.
It's, in my opinion, is that we don't exactly have businesses flying in here every day. I'm okay doing it on everything. Truthfully, I mean, it's $25 that money can't be, maybe there's more hoops, but at least then we can catch everything, right? Nothing slips by then.
Here's just a quick question, Jared. You have to remind me, if someone doesn't come in, like, let's just say, I own a pet store, I'm replacing a pet store, and I don't do it because I don't realize I have to do it. Is there like a double fee for that?
So there unfortunately would be a double fee. So anytime, this goes for building permits, this goes for site plan applications. If, anything is started without this proper approval process, it does turn into a double fee. So if they were to start, it would end up being a $50 fee for them. And I know, I guess maybe that's another discussion too for Plan Commission. If, if that double fee is something we would want to see, or if, I guess essentially it's meant to be that slap on the wrist of, hey, make sure you're doing things properly. But at the same time, you have that argument of you honestly truly didn't know. And for me to truly determine what were your intentions, I can't get inside your head. I'm no psychologist. But sorry, that was a dig.
Your point is taken, but I think that's a whole nother issue on the fees. And I keep thinking about that as you go through the whole process too. And I guess I'm leaning towards what Eric is saying too, that why not just require everybody to do it? And I'm okay with that, but we certainly need to get the word out so that people know that this is something they need to do. So it might just be somebody walking through the community and saying, "Hey, there's a new business going in here. Let's do something. Let's be proactive and go talk to them about it."
You have a good feel for where we are, Jared?
Yeah, for that one. Sorry, I'll continue on.
Okay.
There's a couple more. So, again, just some intermediate sections, just kind of clean up. So there's things that it just said Plan Commission, but also things are done by the zoning administrator. So just adding some clarity. Not that it's going to be perfect, but also just kind of clearing up. So now moving into the standards. So when a new building is built, we have specific standards. And that is on section 4. If you scroll down one more page, Aaron. In section 4, there's building design standards. So just making it clear that these are for new structures, not change in uses. Before it was very convoluted, and somebody going to a new building, they're like, well, I have to meet the requirement for outside materials to be this and this and this. It's already cited. I don't have that budgeted. So just kind of clearing that up, that's not required. It is required for new buildings that are being put in and constructed anyways, but the change in uses do not require that. Same if you scroll down one more to section 5, site design standards. There's a certain section in there that, again, it's really for new construction. And then since we don't really have anything for change in use site plans, there's a section 7, if you scroll down to the bottom of your current page. So it'd be page 3 and page in the packets 78, you said? Thank you very much. So kind of going through that. So I'll propose uses shall conform to the uses permitted in the applicable zoning code district. So that's really what this application is for, this change in use, to check that they are in the right district. You don't have the foundry coming into our downtown district and starting a machining, foundry work, I guess we'll put plainly. We love them, but not downtown. The adequate parking and loading areas. So again, we're just checking to say, hey, are you going to have adequate parking? With our new parking ordinance that we put through, really, they would just have to say, yep, there's adequate parking. There's 10 stalls provided already. I'm only going to have 4 employees, including myself. And really, we only have 3 customers at one time. There's going to be plenty left over. So pretty simple on that one. Landscaping and buffer areas. So if there has not been, and this is kind of a bigger one, so a lot of the current properties that people go into, there is no landscaping, and parking lot buffering is not present. The proper landscaping is not present. So just taking a look at that and also having them kind of keep that up to par. Now there are some exemptions and alterations, and this will maybe be a discussion at the next Plan Commission meeting, but for an example, at Crystal's Automotive, his current site has concrete, existing concrete parking lot going right up to his property line. So to an extent, he can't reasonably do the proper landscaping. So kind of working with property owners in that aspect as well to say, okay, well, you can't do landscaping here. Could you maybe do, like there's an instance for a signage where they asked if they could do potted plants or potters, and that was allowed as it was still enhancing the sign. They were going to plant flowers, just looking for that cooperation and still trying to meet the code as much as possible, but also giving some leeway where it may not be feasible. Next one would be exterior lighting. So I think this is a big one. Good thing we check for. Good thing to check for, I guess. Just to make sure that there is no nuisance lighting on the building, which usually there isn't, so it's usually never an issue. But if there happens to be this light that's shining into a neighboring property and it's flooding the property super bright, that's an issue. The other thing, and I guess this would be something I would be looking for some input for, refuse and recycling areas shall be screened. So, something we want to keep or remove, or, if you guys want to see in the community, I guess an example would be, and not trying to use one close, not to pick anyone out or point anyone out, but close to home here where Summit Insurance Building, the building next door, I don't know if you guys took that way in, but they have dumpsters that are right next to the sidewalk. Without this requirement, that would only be screened at the owner's will, whereas when we went through this process, and it was required when they went through this process, they will be screening it come spring/summer. So that would now be shielded, away from the sidewalk. People walking past to our downtown are no longer going to be walking past a huge dumpster. Trying to shield, maybe you won't shield the smell, but you'll shield the site and try to help. So again, it does add some cost with this one. I know Aaron and I have kind of talked, an existing building coming in, that could be a $1,000 bill to properly screen with vegetation or fencing around their dumpsters. Is that something, we want to see in our community, or is that something that we just, it's not a priority and we don't want to see? So I guess some input there. I can clarify if needed. If you have any input. If you don't, that is A-okay as well. I guess in my professional opinion, I go back and forth on it where, it can be an added expense, but at the same time, it does really enhance our community. So added expense versus lack of enhancement, it's kind of a toss-up. And again, no decisions now. I'll bring it back for another discussion.
Okay.
Are you asking if we think it's a good idea to make them have that?
Yeah. So is it something we want to see? I guess in your opinion, is it a requirement you want to see in the community, or is it a requirement that for change of uses for new buildings, it is a requirement as they are building from scratch, and it's usually easier to incorporate that in as well. But is that something on change in uses, such as the Summit Accounting building, is that something the Plan Commission wants to see happening in the community?
Well, I know having two businesses next to my house, they added onto the building, and then they had to add in, the surrounding around the garbage, and I really am glad they did, because it was an eyesore. And so my opinion would be to shield them, yes. So, but there may be other opinions on that. But that's mine.
I agree with you, Eric.
I agree too. I mean, I think there's examples where you might not be able to do that. But I think whenever possible, you certainly should try to screen them.
Yeah, what would happen in the situation if it's not really possible for that location?
So in terms of, so I guess covering one of those, so like the central business district downtown where they abut alleys, it's really not possible for the alleys to screen in their garbages. Talking with Justin, our DPW director, he made note too that it's already a tight space in those alleyways. So just trying to add fencing and then trying to have those garbage trucks maneuver in a tight alleyway, that's tough. You see some of them leaving by like the Revival, and there's just a couple of feet on either side of this garbage truck, so they don't got much space. So that's one of the exceptions I do specifically note in here as a change. If it's not, I guess in my mind personally, it would be difficult to not have, or to have an instance where it is absolutely not possible, since you can use fencing and screening. So maybe it's a tight property line. You could plant some cedar bushes. And the example of Summit Accounting's building over here next to City Hall, you can do fencing that you can bolt it into the current concrete, and it can be installed that way. So there are different instances, again, with the vegetation and fence, that you can play with it a little bit. And, again, there's certain vegetation types you can get that are maybe skinnier, it can fit in within tight ranges. So I guess in the instance that it absolutely couldn't work, there would, of course, be some leeway. But again, trying to work with that property owner to say, hey, maybe this is an option. Have you explored this? There's others in the community that do it this way. Could you use vegetation that may actually end up being cheaper for you? You just got to make sure you keep it alive. So again, absolutely not possible. We could definitely work and try to find a compromise of some sort, but
any further discussion on this subject? Okay, we'll move on to transitory structure definition.
yeah. Sorry, let me scroll down.
On page 81.
Perfect. Appreciate it. So on page 81 of your packet, transitory accessory structure. So this is a new term that was put in with our new zoning code. And really it's meant to encompass those minor items that, you may add to your property. If you have a little pool bin with that you put your pool noodles in, small things like that, sandboxes, raised garden beds. One of the main issues we are running into is in this current language, there's a section that says enclosed structures no larger than 120 square feet in area. So this becomes difficult when our current building code standards require that any accessory structures meet UDC requirements. So that means they need to be secured to the ground. They need to have a proper foundation, things like that. So this kind of goes against what our building code requires. So by us not requiring this, and we really don't get those to come in then for building permits, and then they go not in conformance with our UDC code for accessory structures. So kind of was talking with our building inspectors about this, and this is something they have, 5 or 6 of these over in Cap Services area that they recently found that, they're not meeting their standards. And then you have individuals that are upset because now they have this accessory structure that they thought they were fine with because zoning didn't allow it, but building code does, so then they got to go back and retrofit it. So just trying to eliminate that hurdle and kind of be more cohesive with our building inspectors and building code. So really the main section here is just eliminating that enclosed structures of no larger than 120 square feet to require site plan applications for those as well. Any accessory structures should come in for a site plan and meet setback standards. The other one, beehives and enclosures for chickens, we do have separate permits for that. So they do need to actually come in and get permits for that. And then just some clarification on one of the other topics. But yeah, I'll take any questions. Otherwise, if there's no questions or concerns, this is one I'd probably try to bring back as an ordinance at the next meeting.
Any questions for Jared? Comments? You're okay with it? Okay. And bring it back in an ordinance then.
Could I clarify in the site plan? Is the site plan something we would want to see one more time at Plan Commission just in a red line, or is that something move forward with and kind of put it in a ordinance format and see what it looks like?
Any preferences? Oh, Aaron, you were going to say something?
I was just going to say, even if you're bringing it in ordinance format, there's plenty of opportunity for discussion at that point.
All right. All right. So moving on. This next one is on page 82. So kind of prepping for the River North subdivision and neighborhood. Kind of looking at our residential uses and where they're permitted, where they're not, where they're prohibited, where they're conditional. Just trying to take a look at that, clean some things up. Try to be more welcoming to diversity of housing. So the first one is on page 82, and it's the single-family dwelling attached zero lot line, which is a mouthful. Essentially, that would be your condos. Cleaning this one up, as we do currently have condos and condo plats in our R3 zoning district before it was prohibited. So just trying to clean that up. We have them there already. No reason that they shouldn't be there. It is R3 is multifamily residential, which a condo plat essentially is. So looking to permit that. And then on page 83, there's multifamily residential mixed use. So this and then the very bottom one of upper story residential units can be a bit confusing. After kind of working through with staff on what this actually was looking to be, it was looking to be that live work unit that is specifically designed for B7. So just looking to clear up the language there, permit that, make that a little simpler. And then the row house townhouse. So this is one that was really initially sparked by the River North, as the city is proposing to do row house townhouse. And it would really be only allowed in the B7 district, which again is a district that is very similar to B2. It was created for a designated area and nothing else. So it was a bit odd that, even from a city from where we got our concept plan from, who is, a company that is full of designers and planners, they proposed row house townhouses in this new neighborhood, which we could never actually even permit as it stands now. So just looking to clean that up, permit that in the R2, B1, B3, and B4, not B2, as B2 is more primarily the, we're looking for that commercial aspect on the bottom and upper story residential units on top. So keeping B2 out of this. Then also on the upper story residential units, adding that to B1. So if we wanted at all any buildings where, maybe it's more that mixed use commercial on the bottom, some residents up top, we could have that in the B1. And that's specifically looking at Churchill Street, where there is a lot of B1. So just kind of a high level overview there. Trying to add housing diversity, be welcoming towards that. I know we're in a time where affordable housing is very critical. So just making sure that we have those housing options readily available and as options, I guess I feel strongly about. But I'll take any comments if you guys have any concerns, dislikes. Otherwise, this would be one I would look to bring back in ordinance form as well.
Any questions, comments, Aaron?
I just have a comment. I just want to, Jared, give you a lot of credit for looking, a lot of the stuff that we talk about is cleanup, making things easier to administer, but this is really looking forward at something like River North, like we're talking about, or developments anywhere. And it really would have been frustrating to get to a point where we have a proposed development of row house, townhouse, and then we have to hit the pause button for 2 months to clean this up. So I give you a lot of credit for looking at the detail ahead of time, knowing what may happen in the future.
Thank you.
I'm just wondering, what are you going to do after all the cleanup is done?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot.
I can focus strictly on economic development and doing whatever Justin tells me to do.
Go me a coffee.
Any other discussion on this item? If not, we'll move on to reports. Anything you want to highlight for us here, Jared?
There's not too much here, just some change in uses. Some of the things I mentioned already at the last meeting. Nice to see some additional housing going in, specifically on Charles Wright Drive. Those are the condo units, so nice to see that. 416 Mill Street. The plans look to be like a pretty nice house, so nice to see there's some nice development going in throughout the city, but really nothing of concern or necessary to talk about.
Eric?
I saw that Cook Chiropractic moved out on School Street. Is there somebody else already moving in there? I saw they were doing some drywall work in there already. I thought that seemed odd. I know there's a for sale sign out, in front.
Not that I know of. And I guess with that being a commercial property, that would be the commercial building inspection. So I don't know if they did receive any permits from that yet. I don't have any change in uses that have come through. Talking with the owner of the building, they were just looking to relocate to a different part of town. I think it was a lease opportunity, a little bit cheaper, less maintenance, just worked out for them better. So have had talks with the owner of that current property that they're moving out of and kind of what they could do with it, but nothing formal yet.
Okay. I just thought it was strange that I saw them hauling drywall out of there. Because it was an office, so you'd think they'd want to leave it for whoever would buy it and let them do whatever they want to do. So I thought maybe somebody already bought it.
Yeah, not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions on reports? Okay, we have reached the end of the agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn? Oh, I'm sorry.
Could I wait? Just one comment I just wanted to make right away. So looking forward to the April meeting, there is going to be a conflict with elections. So elections will take place on that Tuesday, the first Tuesday of the month, so April 5th. So as such, the Common Council cannot meet on an election. So we discussed possibly switching our meetings. So the Common Council is already switched to be the first Wednesday. So April 6th of 2022. So wanted to kind of discuss with you guys if the day before would work for Plan Commission. So Tuesday, April 5th instead of the 6th. And if that would be okay, we can look to make that change and make it on the calendar, make notes of it, and send out notices. But just thought I'd catch you guys in person.
I may have to leave early, but I can be here for the beginning of it.
Okay.
Works for me.
So council's got to meet. They can't meet on the 5th, so we're going to meet on the 6th. And you're proposing what?
We meet on the 5th. Plan Commission meets on the 5th.
Our ordinance states that Common Council can't meet on elections.
Oh, I see.
but
So
not
we're just
Plan
doing a flip-flop.
Yep,
Right.
little flip-flop.
Works for me.
I'd be fine with that.
Both of you guys would be here both nights anyway. It's just a matter of which meeting you'd be.
Right.
If it were a week later, I would not be there.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So you want to go to the 13th, huh?
Okay, well, let's set that as the meeting date then, April 5th at 5:15. Is there anybody have an objection to that? Okay, we'll move it to then. Anything else for the good of the order?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Olson and Wayne, moving second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned at 6:16. Thank you.
Thanks,
job, Mr.
everyone.
Keelan.
Nice job, Alan.
Thank you.